What is up, Pop Fam? Welcome back to another episode of the Pour Over podcast. If you are new here, I just want to thank you so much for clicking on this episode and finding this little podcast of mine. We might be a small podcast here, but I absolutely love doing it. I do want to kind of introduce myself if you are new here. Hi, my name is Kyla. I post episodes on this podcast every single Tuesday morning. And this podcast is just a place where believers can come and be poured into so we can go out and pour into others and help make disciples of all nations, but also learn how to be better disciples ourselves. You know, there's so much that goes into our daily walk with Christ. And a lot of those things we don't always talk about, we don't always address. And sometimes as a Christian, we just think, well, this is kind of a unique situation. How am I supposed to approach this? How should I go into this with the mindset of Christ? And those are the kinds of things we talk about here. That is what I am here for. And, you know, as believers, we really do need a place where we can just be encouraged and built up and received so we can go out and do the work that Christ has called us to do. And that is exactly what this podcast is for. I've been doing this podcast since July. So, like I said, we're a little bit smaller, a little bit newer, but I'm just so thankful for every single person who listens to any episode weekly. I'm just so thankful for you guys. And, you know, if you're not new here, if you are a loyal member of the Pop Fam, then you already know me. You know the whole deal. You know the rundown of the podcast. But like I said, I'm just so thankful that you decided to click on this episode and tune in and listen today. Today, we are going to talk about learning how to rest in God's plan. And when I say that, what I mean is that we, I feel like we live a lot of our time very hurried and very stressed and rushed. And I would even say we live a lot of our life very fearful. And it's because we think that we're going to miss out on what God has for us. It's because we think that if we don't work for something, then we're going to miss out. We're going to miss our chance that, you know, we're just going to not receive the things that God has for us. And we think that it's going to be on our shoulders. And we just live so much of our lives feeling like if we don't control the narrative, if we don't do something, if we're not, you know, running around like crazy people, then we're going to miss out on the opportunities that God has for us. And a lot of times, especially when we are waiting on something, when we're waiting on a promise, when we're waiting on something to be fulfilled in our lives, we get a little anxious and we get a little frustrated. We specifically get frustrated with God, which is not how we should be approaching things, but we do because we're human. You know, when we're waiting on something to happen in our lives, when we're waiting on breakthrough, when we're waiting on the next step in our lives, when we're waiting on the promise that God has given to us or that he's spoken over us, you know, we want it in our timeline. And when it doesn't happen, when we want it to happen, we end up getting very rushed and stressed and worried and fearful. And we just run around and we're just anxious people. And I really do feel like our society is just an anxious society. We are just an anxious, desperate society. We are so desperate for things. Like, we can't just want something anymore. We are desperate for things. Like, we have to have things. We can't even wait to buy something. Like, we have to have it right now before we even get paid. I just feel like so much of our time is spent being desperate, anxious, and wanting things to happen when we want it to happen. We are an instant gratification society. And if you don't know what that means, it means that when we want something, we want it now. We do not want it delayed. That's why Amazon Prime, and I'm guilty of this as well, but that's why Amazon Prime is so popular. That's why we love next day shipping. That's why we love buying things and paying for expedited shipping. It's because we want things and we want it now. We don't want to have to wait for the result. We don't want to have to wait for our food, for example. Like, fast food restaurants are so popular, and it's because we are an instant gratification society. And when we are spending our time anxiously awaiting for something to be given to us or for something to arrive, we're anxious, right? We're anxious and we're waiting and we're frustrated. And when we don't get it right away, we get nervous and we get stressed. And that is the opposite of how we are supposed to live our lives as Christians. So today I'm going to talk about how to rest in God's plan. Okay, so as I'm talking about us being like a rushed, hurried, anxious society, especially when it comes to things that we want or things that we desire, I do want to give a little bit of an example so I don't lose you, so you guys kind of understand the mindset of where I'm coming from. So, a practical example I would use is my dad. My dad, like every other dad out there, I'm sure, he wants to get to the airport 2 hours early every single time we fly. And if there's going to be traffic, he wants to get there with an additional 30 to 40 minutes. Like he wants to leave with extra time. Now, I get it. I get it. Airports, they can be tricky. There can be lines, there can be unexpected things that you have to deal with. But recently, we were on a trip to Denver. And, Denver can be a little tricky, and we had never been there before. So, my dad, on our returning trip, so coming from Denver to home, he wanted to leave 2.5 hours before we needed to be at our gate because he figured, well, if we have to be there 2 hours before we need to be at the gate, because that's what he does every time he flies, he gets there 2 hours early. And then he accounted for traffic just in case. We left probably 30 to 40 minutes earlier than we would have normally just because of traffic. Now, we got to the rental car return place. We got through security. We got through all the places we needed to go. We stopped at Einstein Bros for bagels and coffee. We got to our gate finally. And let me tell you, we still had an hour to kill before we actually needed to be at our gate, before they even started boarding. I'm not talking about like takeoff time. I'm talking about an hour before they even started boarding. We got to the gate. And we sat there for an hour. Now, it wasn't bad. I was able to update my mom on our travel and listen to a podcast, open up a book, finish my meal. But my dad was so anxious about getting where he needed to go that we left 2.5 hours early and we still got there an hour before we needed to be there. And that is how we fly every single time. I don't know if you guys are like that. That's his rule of thumb for flying. So it's become my rule of thumb for flying. Even if I'm flying by myself, I get there 2 hours early. I always have time to kill. But the reason that we had so much time left over is because my dad was anxiously trying to get where he needed to go. He did not want to miss his flight. He did not want to miss his opportunity to get home. And I get that. It makes sense. Traffic, security, you never know what's going to happen. But that mindset is exactly what so many of us deal with, right? We are so anxious about whatever it is we think is coming our way, whatever it is that we desire, whatever it is that we want, that we think is in God's plan for us. We get so anxious about seeing that happen, about seeing the fruit of it, about seeing the results, that we start to get a little frustrated if we are not in control and if it doesn't happen in our timeline. So many of us walk around every single day trying to control the narrative, trying to work extra hard, and trying to sometimes even push people around so we can get what we want. And so many of us walk around every single day anxious because we're so worried we are going to miss out on what is meant for us. There are a few different examples of this. Some of it could be like a career. Maybe you're waiting on that job opportunity that you've been really praying for, that you really feel like God wants you in. Maybe you've been waiting for that job opportunity, or you're waiting for that promotion where your boss finally recognizes all of your hard work and tells you that you get to move up. Maybe you've been working really, really hard to show everybody around you that you're deserving of that promotion, that that title should be yours. Maybe you have even prayed over it and you feel like God has promised that title to you. And then when the door doesn't open or that promotion goes to someone else, you get frustrated and you get anxious and you're like, well, I've been working for years. I've tried so hard. Why is that door not opening for me? Why did I get passed in favor of that person when I thought this was meant for me? How could I possibly not have that? or when the boss doesn't give it to us in the timeline that we expected, and you're thinking, well, I need to make my next career move, are you going to give it to me or not? We get anxious because we're like, well, it's either going to happen or it's not, and I need to know. Another kind of more sensitive example, but still true, is when families struggle to conceive. Now, again, I know this is a very sensitive topic. This is something that a lot of families, a lot of couples really struggle with is infertility. And I'm not trying to be insensitive. I know it's a struggle. I personally have not been in that position, but I do know people that are close to me that have really struggled to have kids and really struggled to conceive. And I know that that's frustrating. And I know it seems like a delayed promise. And I know that's really hard on women, but that's even the same thing, when we feel like it's our job to have a family, like to procreate, to bring people into this world, to glorify the Lord. And when it doesn't happen in our timeline, we get frustrated with God because we're like, God, you of all people could make this happen. It's not happening when I want it to happen. Why? Why is it not mine? Why am I not able to do this yet? Why is this not happening for us? Why is this not happening for my family? Why is it not happening in the timeline that I pictured when we're trying, when we're doing everything right? Why is this door not opening for us? Another example is with relationships, I know so many young Christian women, and really just Christian women in general, who are single and they're waiting for that man of God. They are waiting for that relationship. They are waiting for God to provide that man that will love them, that will lead them, that will guide them, that will be their husband, the father of their kids. There's so many Christian women out there who are single and waiting for that relationship. They are praying. They are putting themselves out there. They're talking to guys in their church. They're opening themselves up for conversation. They're doing all the right things. They're trying to become a Proverbs 31 woman, which we've actually talked about. They're trying to make themselves available. They're doing everything they can to be available for this man of God to enter their lives, and he's still not there. And sometimes it looks like, dang, there's really no one there. Dang, there's like not a roster. There's like nothing going on there. And it gets frustrating because you start to see the people around you get married and, take that next step and buy a house and move and start a family. And then their kids go to school and they have date nights and double date nights. And meanwhile, you're still praying for a man to even look at you twice and even think about you during the day. And it gets frustrating because you think, God, you don't want us to be alone. You want us to have a partner in life. Why is this not happening for me? Am I missing something? Am I doing something wrong? Did you forget that I have been working to prepare myself to be a wife? Did you forget that I desire marriage? And it gets hard on us because we have this desire and this struggle. We struggle. It's not just something we want. No, we yearn for it. We ache for it. We struggle so much because we spend so much time on our knees praying for this one thing that we want. And we say, God, if you could just give me this one desire of my heart, I'll spend the rest of my life worshiping you. God, if you could just give me the marriage, if you could just give me the career, if you could just give me the child, if you could just give me the house, if you could just give me the followers, if you could just give me the platform, if you could just give me the thing that I want so badly, then I could do what I'm meant to do for you, God. Then I would be living in my true purpose. I can't live in my full purpose until you give me what I want, Lord. And I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there because we sound like that to God. I know there's so many of us who in our prayer time, we tell the Lord, God, if you could just give me this thing, if you could just hand it to me, if you could just have that man enter my life, if you could just give me that relationship, if you could just allow me to conceive, if you could just open up that job opportunity, if you could just give me that promotion, if you could just give me the platform, if you could just get me the house, if you could just get me the acknowledgement, if you could just give me this, God, then I could properly follow you. Then I could be a good disciple. Then I can step into my purpose. And the fact of the matter is, no matter what it is in your heart, no matter what it is that you want, having that thing is not going to make you better equipped to be a disciple of the Lord. Okay, that thing does not equate to your purpose. I don't know what your calling is. I don't know what you feel like the Lord is calling you to, but whatever it is in your heart that you desire, that does not make up your purpose, okay? being a wife is not your purpose. It might be an aspect of your life that you feel like you're called to. It is not your purpose. Being a parent is not your purpose. Having that job is not your purpose. Getting that career opportunity or that house or whatever it is, the followers, the platform, whatever it is, that is not your purpose. That is not why God put you on this earth. And we get so wrapped up in whatever it is in our heart that we want, that we struggle and we ache and we cry all the time. I don't know if the guys do this, but I know as ladies, we will get down on our knees and we will sob because we think, God, if you could just give me this thing, Lord, then I could be fulfilled. Then I could just have what I've been wanting to have for so long, God. Then I could have my purpose. And the fact of the matter is, things do not equate our purpose, okay? Other people do not equate our purpose. God has a purpose for you, and it is to be on this earth and glorify Him, okay? That desire does not equal your purpose. But we make it so much harder on ourselves because we desire so badly just this one thing in our lives. And we think, God, if you could just give me this one thing, then I could be living in my purpose. And when we don't get it, or when it looks like it's not coming anytime soon, or when it doesn't happen in our timeline, we get frustrated and we get angry with God. And then we start to think, God, do you even hear me? Do you even know the desires of my heart? Do you even care about the desires of my heart? Like, are you listening to me? Sometimes we think that God has forgotten about us, that God has forgotten the dreams that we have in our heart. We think that God doesn't care about us. We think that God doesn't care about what it is that we want. We think He doesn't care. He just casts us aside when we have this thing that we want so badly, and we make it so much harder on ourselves. And then we stress. We stress because we think, okay, either I've done something wrong and I've missed the mark, or God did something wrong and He cast me aside. He doesn't care about me, or He forgot about me. And neither of those things are true. Neither of those things are true. Okay, God does not forget about you. He has not cast you aside. He didn't forget that you have desires of your heart. And it's not about you messing up or missing your mark or not doing enough. It's not about you. Your purpose is not about you and what you can do. It's about God's timeline. So, with that being said, I know I kind of came in hot, kind of came in strong, but with that being said, I want to get into, well, first off, I want to get into some reasons why God might be making you wait in this time. Okay, one reason why God might be making you wait for that desire in your heart or for that next step that you've been praying about is He might want to test you to see if you desire that thing in your heart more than you desire Him. Because sometimes we get a little too caught up in whatever it is that we want. Sometimes we let that occupy our hearts and occupy our thoughts, and we spend so much time praying about that one thing. And I don't think it's wrong to pray repetitively. I don't think it's wrong to continue to seek God with this one specific thing that you want, this one specific desire. But if we are spending all of our prayer time on this one thing and we're not praying for God's glory, we're not praying for growth of the kingdom, we're not praying for other people like our friends or our family or our coworkers, whoever it might be in our lives, maybe people we lead, maybe people we serve with. If we are only spending our prayer time praying about that one thing that we want, and we are constantly all day long only talking to God about that one thing and telling Him, God, if you could just give me this one thing, then I would really be happy. God might look at you and He might test you to see if you are putting that desire above Him. I want to remind you that no matter what it is you want, and no matter your reasons for wanting it, nothing, and I repeat this, nothing should ever take the place of God in your heart. Whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you're desiring, no matter what the reasons are, maybe you want it so you can glorify God. That desire cannot outweigh your desire for God, if that makes sense. Like, that thing should not have the throne of your heart. That thing should not occupy your mind and occupy your thoughts all day. God should occupy your mind. God should occupy your thoughts. God should be on the throne of your heart alone, not that thing that you are desperate for. And maybe God is wanting to see if, even if He delays you getting that thing, if you will continue to pray fervently. Because he looks at your heart. The Lord knows your heart. You might think that you can keep things from God, but you absolutely cannot. The Lord knows your heart better than you even know it. And so God might be trying to see if you are willing to put him on the throne of your heart, whether you get that thing or not. Because it's a possibility, that let's say you've been praying about this one thing, and if he gives it to you, you could be like, okay, God, thanks so much. And then you stop praying fervently and you stop praying at all. And I want to remind you that we need God daily. Despite what it is he gives us, whether he gives you that desire or not, whether it's a mountaintop moment or you're in a valley, we need the Lord and we need to seek him daily. So God might be trying to see, where does your heart lie? Where is your allegiance? Where are your thoughts? Where's your heart at? Is your heart with this thing? Are you glorifying this thing more than you're glorifying him? Are you seeking this thing more than you are seeking him, more than you're seeking his will? Because if you are, he might be delaying you getting whatever it is that you're desiring in your heart. He might be delaying that so he can teach you how to seek him before you seek that thing. Okay. God is not a magic genie. Okay, we don't just seek the Lord so he can give us, 3 wishes and we can get whatever we want. That's not how God works. Okay, that's not who the Lord is. That's not the purpose of our relationship with God. In fact, it's the complete opposite. Our relationship with God is to glorify him and to bless him, not so we get blessed. I'm not saying we don't get blessed in the process, and God does love to bless us. He loves to give us things. He loves to give us gifts because that's just the kind of father and just the kind of God he is. But that is not the purpose of our relationship with the Lord. So if we are seeking this thing, if we are seeking that job, that relationship, that family, whatever it is, if we are seeking that thing more than we're seeking him, more than we're seeking his glory, more than we're seeking the kingdom being grown, more than we are seeking us living out our purpose, if we are seeking that thing more than we're seeking his will being done, then he might delay it because he's trying to teach you that you have got to put him back on the throne of your hearts. It's not about what you want. Not that he won't give it to you eventually, not that you won't get it in time, but he's trying to teach you it's not about what you can get, it's about him. So that could be one reason why the Lord is trying to delay you getting what you want and why you're having to wait a little bit because he wants to see where your heart really is. And another reason that he might be delaying you getting that desire in your heart is to see if you can be faithful with what you already have. There's a scripture, actually, I want to pull it up. It is in Luke 16:10, and I was planning on reading this from my Bible, but my Bible's all the way over there, and I'm not going to pause it to go get it. Luckily, I have it on here. But it says in Luke 16:10, it says, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much." So, if you have what you have right now and you are not being faithful with it, you can't really be trusted with it, you're not really doing anything with what God has given you already, he's not going to give you more. If you are praying for that godly marriage and you are just desiring that God would give you that man that would walk into your life and sweep you off your feet and go to church with you every Sunday and pray with you, but you're not even being faithful with the relationships that you have right now, he's not going to give you a new one. Like, when was the last time that you checked on your friends and asked them, like, hey, how are you really doing? When was the last time you checked on your family members and said, how can I serve you better? Because the relationships you have right now are so significant. They matter too. We get so caught up in the what could be and what we could have, but God has already given you something today. He's trusted you with something today. Maybe that's what the job you have right now, and you're praying for that new job opportunity. You're praying for that promotion. You're like, God, if you could just give me that promotion. But are you being faithful with the job you've already been given? Are you really thriving in your job? Are you doing the extra little things that you don't have to do, but you're doing it just to show that you can step up and handle the responsibility and be a team player? If it's, a house that you want or the followers that you want and you're doing it for the money. Well, God's not going to bless you with more money if you can't be faithful with the money you already have. If you're constantly spending money left and right on useless things just because it popped up on your TikTok shop or on your Amazon, God's not going to bless you with even more money financially because why would he? you're not being faithful with what you've already been given. And that really applies to so many areas of our lives. But God could be making you wait on whatever the desire is because you are not being faithful and you are not multiplying what you have already been given. It's like the story of the talents in the Bible, this boss gave these different, oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher this story. Please don't come for me. Okay, I just read it the other day, but I've been sick, my brain is not working and I haven't had a nap. But there's a story in the Bible where this boss gave these servants X amount of talents. And he said, okay, I'm trusting you with this. Let me see what you do with it. So he leaves and then he comes back. And two of the servants have multiplied their talents. And one just kind of hung around with it and put it in the ground and was like, well, I didn't want to lose it. So here you go. I gave you exactly what you gave me, nothing else. And the boss is like, I was expecting you to do something with this. You have not been faithful with what I've given you. These other two were faithful with what I gave them and they multiplied it and they were fruitful and they did something about it. You were lazy and you wasted it. You didn't do anything about it. You didn't do anything with what I gave you. So maybe God is making you wait because he wants you to show that you can be faithful, that you can be fruitful, right? Fruitful, meaning you don't just kind of go through the motions and just kind of get through the day with what God's given you, that you're actually doing something about it, that you're taking initiative, that you are multiplying, that you are being fruitful, that something is coming from what God has already given you. So maybe God is making you wait because he wants you to show him that you can be fruitful with what he has already given you. He's not going to trust you with more if you can't be trusted with what you already have. And same goes with, even gratitude. God's not going to give you more if you're not grateful for what you already have. If you're constantly praying that God gives you the next best thing, that God betters your life, that God gives you just this one thing, and you're not even thanking him for what he's already given you, why is he going to give you more? If you're praying that you have that godly marriage, but you're not thanking him daily for the relationships that you do have in your life, why would he give you an even more intense relationship that you couldn't handle because you can't even steward the relationships you have right now? Why would he give you this job with a higher responsibility if you're not making the most out of the job that you have right now? So God could be making you wait because he wants to see what you do with what you've already been given. Now, I know you guys are probably listening to this and you're thinking, okay, Kyla, you're telling me why God isn't giving me that desire of my heart. You're telling me why God might be making me wait, but I still really want that thing. Like it's still a desire in my heart. How am I supposed to rest? Well, I do want to get into a little bit of where I'm at with this because this is something that I'm currently trying to actively do in my life and something that God's really teaching me. But before I get into that, I do just want to share and encourage you with, that God is not a God who takes back his promises. Okay? He doesn't take back his promises. He doesn't ever turn his back on you. If God has promised something to you, it's going to come true. You're going to see it happen. It might not come in the way that you are expecting. It might not come in the timeline that you want, but God is faithful. Okay. He is to be trusted. He's the only one actually who is to be trusted above all else. And God never messes up. He never misses a single thing. So maybe you are desiring this one thing in your heart and you're stressing because you feel like you're going to miss out, because you feel like God might have missed it, that you might have missed it. And you're feeling like, well, Lord, I really want this one thing. And, I don't see it happening. And is it going to happen? Am I going to receive this? Let me just tell you, take a deep breath and understand that God has promises for you and they never return void, ever. God does not turn his back on you. He does not forget about you. He does not forget about the desires of your heart. He does not care about your dreams and your goals, especially when it comes to things that you want to have to glorify him and to further his kingdom. God cares about those things. He really, truly does. He sees your heart and he loves you so much and he wants you to live a full, blessed, and abundant life. So maybe you're sitting here and you're stressing because you think, well, how am I supposed to rest in God's plan when I've been praying over that relationship for years and I'm halfway through my life and I still don't have that? Or, when the Lord told me that I was going to step into this job and, it hasn't happened yet. And I received that word 10 years ago and I still haven't seen the fruit of that. Or, someone told me that God told them to say that, this is coming my way and I still haven't seen it. How am I supposed to rest in God's plan when I haven't seen his promises return to me yet? I'm telling you right now, if God said it's going to happen, it's going to happen. That's the end of it. Like, that's really it. Like, it's not like, well, God said it could happen, but that's not a guarantee. It's a maybe. Like, no, if God said it's going to happen, it's going to happen. If God said, I will do this, he is going to do it. If God said, you will receive this, you will receive it. If God said this is going to happen in your life, it's going to happen in your life. But you also have to keep your eyes open, because a lot of times we approach the Lord and what he does and what he can and will do with a very narrow view. And we have this picture of how it's going to work, what it's going to look like, and when it's going to happen. And God can do so much more than you can ask, think, or imagine. So sometimes it really just is a matter of us opening up our eyes a little bit, broadening our horizons, and not approaching him with such a narrow point of view. Not thinking, well, God said that, I'm going to get this job. Well, maybe there's an aspect of that job that you're going to have, but it's not in that specific career. It's in a different career, but you're still fulfilling your calling that God spoke over you. It's just not in the career that you pictured. Or maybe God said that you're going to meet this person, but he didn't say specifically when. So just because you're in your 40s and you're not married yet, that doesn't mean you're not going to be able to meet that man. That just means that you're going to have to wait a little bit longer than what you imagine. We can sometimes approach God with our view on things and with how we think that things should work. And God doesn't work on our timeline. God doesn't work in the way that we expect him to, which is such a beautiful thing about God. It's so much better and so much bigger and more beautiful than we could ever imagine. But we really need to kind of, like I said, just broaden our horizons, open up our eyes, and ask God to open up our eyes. We can only see so much because we're human, but if you go to the Lord and you say, Lord, I want to see things the way you see things. I want to approach my life the way that you see my life. I want to approach my purpose the way you see my purpose. God, help me see things the way that you want me to. Lord, help me be open to new things that I might not expect that you have in your plan for me. But let me be open to that. Let me be available, because oftentimes we say yes to what we think God wants for us, and then God puts something in our path and we're like, oh, I don't know about that one. But it's just because it's new and it's not what we were expecting. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. That doesn't mean that it's not in God's plan. It just means that it's different than what we were expecting. But again, God can do so much more than we can ask, think, and imagine. And if he said it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Like, that's really it. Like, I could honestly, without even getting into my story or my experience, I could end it right there. If God said it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Period. Point blank. End of story. Thank you for listening to the podcast episode. That's all I got to say. That's really honestly the point of what it is that I have to say. But I do want to get into my experience and what I'm learning right now about learning how to rest in God's plan. So, really, the way that I am kind of living this out and working through this right now is, yes, with my relationship status. I know you guys probably guessed it. You're thinking, well, she's a single Christian girl. Naturally, she's going to talk about being single. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing single Christian women only ever talk about the fact that they're single. I get tired of it. I'm not even going to lie. Sometimes I hang out with my friends who are single Christian girlies, and I'm like, we got to get a hobby. We got to stop talking about our future husbands. Like, not that it's a bad thing, not that it's bad. I love talking to my girls about how we're praying for our future husbands and really the things that we're believing God has for us in our relationships in the future. I love it. I think it's beautiful. I think you should do that with your Christian friends more than you should do it with your friends who aren't believers. But sometimes, especially when it comes to social media, I get kind of tired of single Christian women only ever talking about the fact that they're single. Like, I'm like, we got to get a hobby. We got to get a hobby. We got to get some interests. We got to get some things that occupy our thoughts other than our future husbands. Because if we are only ever just like locked in thinking about our future marriage and we're never thinking or talking about anything else, what are we going to do when we get married? We're going to become brainless and spineless. We're not going to have a single thought. and we're going to lose our entire personality. That's completely besides the point. Anywho, I do want to talk about my experience with this because I'm telling you guys, in this past year alone, and it is only April, in honestly, just since the beginning of 2025, I have received more encouragement for and words about my future marriage than I ever have. Like, I have received so much more affirmation about my future marriage and so many more prophetic words about my future marriage than I have in my entire life, in my entire walk with Christ, which is kind of scary because it makes me think, like, wait, this might actually be happening sometime soon. And honestly, even to touch on that, like, in one of my prophetic words that I received about my future relationship, someone told me, like, he's coming sooner than you think. And then I got scared because I was like, well, what does that mean? You know, like, if someone tells you, well, it's coming sooner than you think, like, what does that mean? Like, in the, like, next, like, do I need to, like, go get my hair done, like, now? Like, is that happening in the next few weeks? Is that happening in the next few months? Like, and then I started thinking, well, if it's happening sooner than I think, when do I think it's going to happen? Because it's going to be sooner than that, but I don't know when it's going to happen. So how do I know that it's sooner than I think? Because I don't even know what I think is going to happen, and I don't even know when I think it's going to happen. And that is just an example of not resting in God's plan. And it's so true though, like, especially when it comes to when you're single and when you're wanting that Christian marriage, that's something that I have really struggled with, is feeling like, okay, Lord, like, I feel like it's going to happen, but why not yet? Like, is it coming at all? Like, I started to tell myself, you know what, girl, you just might be out of luck because, like, you're already 22. And listen, I get it. 22 is very young. But I've said this before, like, people tell you, I know I'm just going off on a tangent right now, but people tell you, like, you're so young. You don't need to get married. You're so young. But, like, age has nothing to do with the desire. Like, I could be 22, I could be 42, I could be 62. If I want to get married, I want to get married. And me being 22 has nothing to do with it. Like, I get it. I have time. But do I? I don't know. I don't know when my life is going to be up. I don't know when my time's going to be over. So, do I have time? I don't know. But at the same time, I'm also thinking, well, okay, I'm allowed to be 22 and want to get married. You might think it's young, but it's still a desire. I'm still allowed to have a desire at 22. Anyways, that's completely besides the point. But it is such, like, a real struggle, thinking like, I have this desire and I really want it to happen. When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? How am I going to know the guy is for me? How am I going to know I'm ready? And that is what I mean when I talk about us being rushed and stressed and fearful and worried and hurrying because we think we're going to miss our mark. We think we're going to miss it. We think God's going to skip us. We think that he's going to forget about us. We think we're going to miss our flight, just like how my dad is with getting to the airport 2 hours early. Why does he do that? Because he doesn't want to miss his flight. He doesn't want to miss out on the opportunity to get where he needs to go. He doesn't want to miss his chance. And that's why we stress, because we convince ourselves, and sometimes it's the enemy speaking to us, but we allow ourselves to think, if I don't do something about it, if I don't try to take control, if I don't do what I need to do, if I'm not praying to God about it every single day and just like, hey, God, reminding him that, I still have this desire and I still haven't seen it come true. So, don't forget about it. Don't forget about it. Like, we think that if we're not doing that, we are going to miss out. And the fact of the matter is, that's just not the truth. Like I said, I have received prophetic words about my future husband. Like, I know he's coming. At this point, I'm like, all right, God, like, I get it. You said he's going to come. He's going to come. You said it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And when I learned to just take a step back and actually trust that if God said something's going to happen, it will happen, I was able to relax. Like, now I see my future relationship with my future husband in just a whole different light. Like, I'm not worrying about it. I'm not trying to force myself to put myself out there. I'm not walking around over analyzing every guy and every interaction with a guy, because I'll be honest, I tend to do that. But I'm not over analyzing things thinking, was that flirty? Was he flirting with me or was he just being nice? Okay. Well, he's kind of cool. Do I think he's cute? Do I have to be immediately attracted to my future husband? Maybe I won't be immediately attracted to my future husband. Is he my future husband? What do we have in common? What is his family like? This sounds crazy. This sounds crazy. But for the single Christian girls, you get it, okay? Like, the overanalyzing of every interaction with males is just, it's real. I'm sorry. That's just how our brains work because we're so desperate. That's the thing. We get desperate. We want instant gratification. And then we get frustrated. And so then we get to a point where we get bitter and we're like, you know what? Forget about it. If you're not my future husband, I don't even want you to look at me. And I've been there. Not a good place to be. Luckily, I got over that. But we get so desperate and we get so stressed. And I had to learn that if God promised something to me, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And there is nothing that can stand in the way of the word of God. You are not able to destroy God's word, okay? We mess up for sure. You could definitely fall off of your path with the Lord, but there is nothing that could stand in the way of God working out his purpose in your life. God has had a plan for you from the very beginning. That includes every aspect of your life. So do not think that God has some areas of your life figured out and not the others. Okay, no, God has every detail about your life figured out and he's got it all up here. Okay, if you're not watching the YouTube video, then you don't know that I'm pointing to my head. But I'm telling you, he has got it all up there. He is thinking about you constantly. You occupy the thoughts of the Lord. Do you know that? Do you understand that? That you, your life, your desires, your heart, who you are, you occupy the mind of God all the time. You are constantly on his mind. As the youngsters would say, you live in God's mind rent free. I don't know if people still say that, but that's Gen Z lingo that I know, and I'm Gen Z. So just trying to make it more relatable. But you are constantly on God's mind. And if that is the case, he is not going to forget about you. He's not going to forget to make something happen. He's not going to forget to work out his will in your life. There is nothing you could do that could make God forget about you and your desires and his plan for you, okay? You cannot get in the way of that. God knows what he is doing. He knows what he is doing. Oh my gosh, he knows, okay? He's not going to mess up. He's not going to forget about you. He's not going to make a mistake. He's not going to make an oops. God knows what he is doing. So if he's making you wait, if he is delaying something, he knows what he's doing. And when you learn how to just take that as truth, gosh, life becomes so much easier. It really does. All of this sounds very basic, very like Christian 101, like you can trust God. Like that sounds very like basic, very understandable. It's like one of the first things you learn in VBX is like, I know that I can trust God. God is good. God loves me. God has a plan for me. Like that sounds very basic Christian understanding, but we forget it because we get so wrapped up in the desires of our heart and we get so wrapped up in our own timeline and we allow ourselves to think that God's going to miss us, that what he has planned for us is going to skip us. And that's just not the case. Like, God can be trusted. If he can be trusted to work things out like gravity, and he can create things like gravity to where everything is in perfect alignment, and everything is able to work exactly as it needs to work. If he is able to work from the very beginning and have a plan from the second that humanity sinned, the very first fall of man, if he had a plan to save humanity from the very beginning, he has a plan for you and you can trust it, okay? I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying he's going to give you the easy way out, but I'm telling you, you can trust God. And if you can trust God, you can relax. Can relax. Just like how I am right now. I am not worrying about when I'm going to get married. I'm not worrying about if that guy likes me. If he doesn't like me, what is he thinking about me? Is he thinking about me? I'm tired. I'm done. I'm exhausted from overanalyzing and I'm exhausted from putting in all the work thinking that I get to control the narrative, that if I can just make everything work as I want it to work in my timeline, everything will go according to plan. That's just not the case. And that is why so many of us are so stressed and we're so anxious and we're so tired. It's because we think it's in our hands. We think we're in control and we're not. And that's such a beautiful thing. Oh my gosh, what a gift to know that we are not in charge, that the fate of the world is not resting on our shoulders, that all we have to do is seek the Lord and seek his purpose and seek his will, and everything will fall into place. What a gift, you guys. We have been given the gift of being able to trust the Lord and trust that he knows what he's doing. And we are throwing that gift away because we think we're going to miss it. And we're not. We're not. We're not going to miss out. God doesn't want you to miss out. He knows what he's doing. And I do want to close this episode with some scriptures. Again, I will be reading from my computer because my Bible is over there. I want to start with Proverbs 16:9. It says, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." And then Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose." 1 John 5:14 says, "And this is the confidence that we have toward him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us." So you see, God hears us. He sees us. He is not forgetting about you. He has a plan for you. And it is a gift that you have got to accept, that you just get to relax. And that is the whole point of this episode, you guys, is that God has a plan. How do we learn how to relax in God's plan? We just have to trust. And if you know God, if you know his character, you know you can trust him. And like I said, that sounds very easy. And it's not easy because we're humans and, we stress and we worry and we doubt. And I'm not saying it's right, but it is just something we do as humans. But as believers, we have been given the gift of knowing a good and perfect God who does not miss a single thing. So how do you learn how to relax in God's plan? You just learn that he has a reason and a timing for everything. He does. And you may not know it. He may not give you a clue what it looks like, but that doesn't mean he doesn't know what he's doing. And you get to just sit back and enjoy the beauty of every day. We miss out on so much because we get so worried God is forgetting about us, and we are so busy filling our mind with these things that we want, and God's just not giving them to us. And God, how could you forget about me? How could you not give me this thing? We miss out on so much every day. Do you know that God blesses you every single day? He blesses you every day, and we miss out on that so many times because we're so worried about what God can give that we have in our timeline. And the fact of the matter is, it's not about us. It's not about us. But God does have a plan. He knows what he is doing. And that is something I'm actively trying to live out, is just relaxing. Gosh, if I had learned this sooner, I would have lived such a more peaceful life. I would have been so much happier and so much more at rest in my spirit. I wouldn't be anxious. I wouldn't be worried. I wouldn't be stressed. I wouldn't doubt because I would learn that God has a plan for us. You can rest in that. He's not going to mess up. You're not going to miss what's meant for you because he has a plan. So that is all I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I hope that something I said really spoke to you. And I don't know, maybe you're worrying about getting that thing and you feel like it's not coming your way and you're starting to stress and you're starting to worry, that maybe God forgot about you. But I hope you understand that you are able to rest in God's plan. God knows exactly what he's doing, and he's not going to forget about you. He knows what he's doing. He sees you. He sees your desires. He has a plan for your life, and he knows what he's doing with your life. So, like I said, I hope this episode spoke to you today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow on the podcast Instagram. It is at the Pour Over Pod. I'm also on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I'm all the places. So you know where to find me. Like I said, I post episodes every Tuesday. And yeah, if you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and share it with a friend that you think might need to learn how to relax in God's plan. But I really hope that this episode blessed you today. I love you guys, and I will see you next Tuesday.